Sup guys, this is JusticeSoulTuna with another voice of JST, and the topic this time is Call of Duty. Call of Duty Ghosts. Okay, the multiplayer was revealed finally this past Wednesday. We got to see, of course, the new HUD, straight off the bat. The new features, as in the knee slide, the tactical lean, the contextual lean, and more of the vaulting. We saw the vaulting in the E3 gameplay, but we got to see the vaulting again, as in like vaulting over obstacles. So it's cool that we got to see that. And obviously, you've seen probably hundreds or maybe a few multiplayer impressions. You've seen loads of multiplayer gameplay. I mean, if you paid attention to my Twitter, I've been just liking, tweeting out all these Call of Duty Ghosts gameplay. So you've probably seen loads of that. I'm not here to talk about that necessarily because, you know, multiplayer, we can talk about that for hours. And I mean, I did the Modern Warfare 3 EU community game night with a couple of people last night, which was pretty cool because we all got to like join together with people who actually like Modern Warfare 3 for once, which is nice. People who actually like Modern Warfare 3 to play a couple of community games and normal game types, which is really fun. And I think we had a representative from Infinity Ward by the name of Tina. It's not spelled like how you think it is, Tina, but a representative from Infinity Ward called Tina who came to speak about different things, like, well, answered questions from fans. Nobody really asked her questions because we're all having so much fun, but I ended up asking her in the end that I asked her, like, how does the lean work? Like, is there a button you press? How does it, how does it initiate? Like anything we need to know, basically. And she told us, which is pretty cool. She said that they had to make it intuitive. It's just, all you have to do is stand next to a wall and just aim down the sights, and you'll lean, like, naturally. And obviously you can kind of change the trajectory of your lean. I think that's pretty cool. So it basically means that whereas normally if you're aiming at a wall and you were just scoping, you can, now you can peek out. It sounds good. I mean, I think I'd have to play it, but people said that it works really well. Now, as I said, that's all multiplayer. You can, talk about that for a while. Now, I'm here to talk about the mobility options. Now, obviously, contextual lean isn't so much mobility as much as it is just a new mechanic. Something the likes of Far Cry 3, as far as I know. Crysis 2, but not Crysis 3, unfortunately. And a bit like older games, except in older FPSs, like, say, the original Fear, the lean system was always a manual, as in you had to do it using a button. Like, it might be on, for example, on console it might be like D-pad or something awkward like that, and on PC it might be like E and Q or something. I don't know, just it depends on what the game is. It depends on what the button mapping is. So they've done it where it's kind of a hybrid between, well, or not even a hybrid, it's just a remix of contextual leans from games like Crysis 2, Fear 3, where it's like you kind of stick to the wall and then you lean by, just doing it naturally. Now, see, this to me is interesting because I'm thinking about campaign. Now, these mobility options, the knee slide, which looks very cool, finally we have a kind of slide move, just like Crysis 2 and Fear 2 slide. See, I've always been a fan of FPSs like that, because to me, those are very tactical games, which, mixed in a bit of, like, really over-the-top action. Like, in Fear, you can use physical attacks. You can use a slide, which is actually a slide kick. You can do a fly kick, as well as a neutral roundhouse kick in the air, as well, which is really cool. And it's what made playing Fear Online pretty funny. I remember when we were playing the Fear demo for PC, Freeminder and I, as in Team BBC's Freeminder, I remember there was this one time when we saw each other in a hallway. Instinctually, we both ran at each other, jumped, and fly kicked each other at exactly the same time. I don't remember who. I think I killed him, but like, it was hysterical because we both did it at the exact same time. We didn't even say anything, and I think probably one of the funniest moments. So having stuff like that, both in like single player and multiplayer, can make the game more engaging. Like, one of the most engaging things about Crysis 2 and 3 is having the slide. So whereas they took out the lean, you still have the slide, you still have the vaulting. Now, I feel that Infinity Ward might have been influenced by these games that have contextual features, because for a while COD has been pretty straight edge. Of course, Black Ops 1 and Black Ops 2 both have the dolphin dive, the dive to prone, which is amazing, and it's really helpful, and it's really fun if you can implement it in certain situations. But it's nice that instead of just having the dolphin dive in COD Ghosts, they decided to have something unique, which isn't like a sort of leg slide, backslide like Crisis, and it isn't like a slide kick like Fear. It's quite literally a knee slide. They slide on their knees. Like if you see in third person, that's what they're doing. I think that's pretty cool because if you play games like I don't think it happens in Fear, but if you play games like Splinter Cell Conviction, usually when enemies are like running into cover, they usually slide into it. And I think that's pretty cool that they've managed to implement something like that, where it can be used to probably slide into cover. Now, it seems that you can lean around corners, but I don't know if you can lean over cover. Now, that to me is more important. Like, is it going to be a system where you lean over cover or just around corners? Because I don't actually know. Hopefully, more details will be revealed. Gamescom is coming this week, so we'll see. To me, the reason why I say this interests me from a single player perspective for the campaign is, will there be parts of the game where these mobility options are utilized in a, well, for lack of a better term, gimmicky way? I'm not saying that gimmicks are bad. I mean, gimmicks are great, but a lot of games that have these features will always put something in the game to make it, well, useful. Contextual lean is the easy one, because there will always be walls in an FPS. Of course, in any game, really. There will always be walls, unless there aren't any, I guess. So there will always be walls to lean around, so I don't really see that being an issue. However, will there be situations where you'll have to lean around? Will there be a part where they'll say, oh, you need to peek around this corner to see if the coast is clear? Or maybe there might be something like, you can peek around this corner to mark enemies, before you go in. Something specific to the situation you're in, because usually with any feature that an FPS has, unless they specifically implement situations where you are forced to use it, as in quite literally the game is telling you to do it, most of the time they're kind of just there for the sake of being there, like at the player's discretion. For example, the dolphin dive in Black Ops 1 and 2 there was never a part of the game where you had to dolphin dive to specifically survive that situation. Every part of Black Ops 1 and Black Ops 2's campaign can be played without ever using Dolphin Dive once. It's fun to use it, and there's so many situations which become more epic using it yourself, and I admit, it just makes it fun that way. It would have been nice if there was a set piece where you use it, but it obviously comes off feeling gimmicky. It's kind of like, okay, look at this new shiny mechanic, this is how you can use it, now do this Dolphin Dive here. But the only issue with this is when you use new mechanics in set pieces, what tends to happen is it becomes a situation where the set piece isn't survivable purely by playing through it. The set piece becomes reliant on a mechanic that has to be executed in a certain way at a certain time. And if you execute this wrong, what ends up happening is you'll die, you have to do the set piece again. And at times this isn't that fun, because like when a game, as on the caliber of Call of Duty with its big set pieces, is trying to give you something really amazing visually, either it does it through QTE, QuickTime events like, say, God of War or Resident Evil 4 or something like that, or it gives you like clearly defined controls, like where to do. Like, for example, one of the best games for that was Metal Gear Rising, where the actual features of the game created set pieces purely because if you use this mechanic in a certain way, it will trigger a situation where you can do something. For example, if you parry the blade mode, you'll instantly get to cut stuff up, and that might trigger a set piece in itself. And I think that's one thing that Metal Gear Rising did amazingly, like a mixture of gameplay and set piece, so it feels like it's like a movie's happening but you're in control. So Call of Duty hasn't really done this before. Call of Duty's always given you set pieces that happen, and you have to survive it by either running, sprinting, or whatever. And Black Ops 1 or 2 didn't give us a set piece that required the dolphin knife. So I have to wonder, will there be a situation where you have to lean around a corner? Will there be a situation where you're chasing somebody and you have to use the the new mobility to vault over stuff? Well, admittedly, there are always chase scenes in Call of Duty. Either you're running after someone or from someone. So if they do it in a subtle way where it's not gimmicky, i.e. you're just chasing somebody or running from something and you're vaulting over cover, you're running down a hallway or whatever. So the vaulting makes it quicker, instead of like, oh look, now I have to, suddenly my arms disappear and I have to do this little vault thing, as we've done since like Call of Duty 4. To now have a visible like hand vaulting over the cover, I think that makes it more fluid. I think that's going to make set pieces all the better. But I have to wonder that is there going to be a specific point where it makes it clearly obvious, like, here's an obstacle course, and here's all these pieces you have to vault over to get, to the exit. Or, here's this, like, room full of enemies, you're going to have to lean around this corner, to see them first. I think leaning around a corner is helpful because it'll give us a chance. It'll give us a chance to, not always just, like, get ourselves shot. Because I think one of the most frustrating things on Call of Duty games on Veteran is going around a corner where enemies are obviously stacked up waiting for you. You turn around the corner and just get obliterated. Like Call of Duty 4 and War Room is a perfect example of this. Now, having this lean means that you don't fully expose yourself, but you are exposed. But I think it's a nice little way of doing it a bit without putting yourself completely in danger. So I think that's cool. But whether or not they'll do it implicitly, i.e. here's some enemies, here's this corner, you can choose to lean or not. Because what I've heard is you can turn the lean off, which basically means that the lean will be down to your discretion, probably like the dolphin dive. It's going to be something that you only use if you want to, not because you're forced to. And I think that's fine. But with the knee slide, and I think the knee slide's perhaps the most, it's the most cinematic. Like having this cool, knee slide thing adds a whole new layer of depth, of mobility. Like, it gives you, a short little thing which you can use to slide into cover, like right into cover, instead of like diving into it. And what's cool about the knee slide, from the looks of it, is whereas dolphin dive, you kind of had to like guess your trajectory, because if you miss, you'll go over the cover or just do something silly. It made for some funny videos. But with the knee slide, you can slide into cover and apparently slide into prone. I think, I'm going to assume that if you sprint and tap B, you'll slide into crouch. If you sprint and hold B, you'll slide into prone. Now, mind you, I'm saying B as in the crouch button. Obviously, this is circle on PS3, and it could be whatever you map it to. So, what I'm imagining is that with the use of vaulting, these new mobility options, vaulting over cover, sliding into cover, and so on, will there be a situation in a game where it's like, either it says to you, kind of like, slide underneath this? I mean, I'm sure there's going to be a mini tutorial which kind of gives you, like, oh, you can slide on a certain cover, or you can slide into certain cover. Or is it going to be like, it's going to give you free reign? I think a mixture of both is nice. Because, for example, in Crysis 2, there are one or two parts of the game where it actually tells you can slide here. And when you do, it looks pretty cool, pretty epic, and it's nice they gave you that option. Like, one of the funnest things about Crysis 2 was when it said, tactical options available. It gave you options on how you want to approach the conflict you're in. I thought that was really cool. So by telling us to slide here, it's kind of giving, like, here's this free set piece, try it out if you want to, you don't have to. And when you do try it out, it's really cool. Now, see, people might say that, but that's, like, very hand-holdy. But the problem with not making it hand-holdy is, what tends to happen is if you don't know a set piece, is available, it becomes a make-your-own-fun situation. Now, I'm a fan of linear games and linear presentation because I'm a fan of fun being given to me, as in, like, here's a game, here's an objective, here's a story, here's a narrative, play from A to B, and do stuff in between. Like, best example of this is Half-Life. Here's your starting position, here's your destination, have fun along the way. And that's how Call of Duty is. Like, you're doing different things, how you approach the situation is different, there's multiple paths, that kind of thing. So, whereas I would love for them to say it, like, how would you do it without making that gimmicky? And even if it is gimmicky, it's fine, because, I mean, Crysis 2 is gimmicky in some cases. But for the most part, it just boils down to common sense. And I think, Call of Duty can pull it off, like, pretty well. Like, they can pull it off best. Where, because they have so much to go from. They have, like, Crysis and Fear and so on. And so I think they can pull it off really well, where they'll be like, okay, you want a knee slide? Well, here's loads of cover in this area. You can use it if you want. If you don't want to, you can just sprint up to it and crouch as normal, or you can knee slide into it. And I think that's a make your own fun I could agree with, because I'm being given the options. It's like, okay, look at this cover right here. You can knee slide into it. The amount of times in Crysis and Fear that I've slid into, like, cover, or slid into an enemy because I knew I had that option is what made the game fun. Sometimes you might forget about it, but having the option there is nice, because if you're a person who enjoys using it, you'll just use it as much as you want to. So if there's never a given situation in Call of Duty Ghosts campaign that says knee slide, like now or something, then that's cool. But what I don't want is there to be blatantly, like, not, I say blatantly obvious in the sense, but like blatantly obvious set pieces where you're supposed to knee slide, but you don't know that. The game doesn't tell you, and you might not figure it out. In fact, you're probably saying, well, if it's obvious, then shouldn't you do it? No, what I mean is a set piece that's obvious, but you can skip it or mess it up, and you won't even know that you could have done that. You know, like, let's just say there's a specific part of the game where something's happening, and I'm not saying like Black Ops 2 where like a different option happens if you mess it up. I'm saying like, what if literally there's a part of the game where you have to do a knee slide, or you can do a knee slide, but the game doesn't tell you to, so you miss out. Now see, Call of Duty, at least Infinity Ward's Call of Duties. I mean, Black Ops 2 is the one with choice, but then again, they still had the, set pieces and linear storytelling throughout most of the levels. But I don't want there to be a situation, because I think this is what I'm not a fan of, where it's like, it's a linear game with these random make-your-own fun moments that you're not aware of. To me, that's not enjoyable, because it's like, I miss out on this experience because I didn't know about it. And I'm not saying that it should always spell it out for us, but make it clear, make it an option. Instead of making it like, oh, here it is right there. If you do this, then awesome. If you don't, then you don't lose anything. Don't make it so that there's this blatantly advantageous or this really awesome time when you can do it, and you don't know about that. Like, for example, like, imagine a set piece where you, like, this is literally just a shot in the dark here, but imagine a set piece where suddenly you're in an ambush and there's a cover to you right in front of you, and if you don't know that you can knee slide into it, then you sprint into it and you possibly die, or maybe you die several times, or you sprint towards it and you get near it, and then I don't know, then you move on and you play the rest of the level. Or what if in that situation you were supposed to knee slide, so where you knee slide into that cover, you trigger a cutscene where your teammate says something to you and gives you like a weapon or something. Something like that, like missing out on something that cool. To me, that's not fair. I'm not saying like funnel me so much that I have no freedom. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying if you're gonna do something cool, at least make the option apparent or available, or perhaps do it through example. Like, don't leave it like purely to the player's discretion. Sometimes you might have to coerce them through subtle means, and I think other games do this well. For example, what if in that ambush situation just mentioned, all your teammates just slid into that cover? Like, you'd think, oh my gosh, I have to do the same. So you slide into that cover, and it's like, yeah, like you just created an organic set piece purely through watching their example. So that way the game's not telling you to knee slide. It's basically saying, in this situation, you can knee slide. Your teammates just did it, so you can choose to if you want to. That's what I mean by, making the choice obvious. So if the cover's always there, you can knee slide into it, cool. And I think that's great. So I think if we're going to have set pieces that utilize knee slide, then I want that to be that. Something like that. I think the next point I want to make is about whether or not these mobility options will be given, I don't know, a more explicit way of using it. By that I mean, will there be a situation where we have to use it, not in the sense of like progressing the story, but rather something more specific. Like, for example, to use the Metal Gear Rising example again, in Metal Gear Rising, like, you have VR missions which purposefully make you use your, the game's mechanics to overcome them. And I think that's cool, because it basically gets you used to them and lets you try them out in inventive ways. And I think one of the criticisms of the original prototype game, at least for some people, was that you had all these awesome powers, but you were never told when to use them, so some of them went to waste. And I agree to an extent. Like, there's no reason to use them if there's nothing to use them on. As I said, directionless. Directionless set pieces. But if there's some sort of like, I don't know, like mode where it's like an obstacle course specifically designed, not like part of the exact campaign necessarily. Maybe like the pit from Modern Warfare 1 and 2, where it's like, okay, we're gonna need to teach you how to do these mechanics, or at least make you aware of them. So have a go. So maybe you'll have like a Spec Ops mission like Modern Warfare 2 and 3, where you utilize the knee slide to complete it. Like, without the knee slide, you can't do it, because from the looks of it, the knee slide is a little bit faster, or at least it's kind of a short burst of speed compared to normal sprinting. So I imagine using that will be useful. So if we have something like along the lines of VR training, I suppose, then that'd be interesting, because I don't see there being any other situation in the game where knee slide and vaulting becomes useful other than making it so blindingly obvious, or not making it obvious and preventing the players from realizing that they can pull that off. So You know, because I think like Black Ops 2 probably learned from this as well, thinking about it. Because with a lot of the options in the game, either it gave you a binary choice, do you want to do this or that, you know, or it's like it gave you the freedom to explore. Like if you had the access kit, you might find new stuff. It gave you the freedom to explore multiple paths, so you might find a gun, you might find a vantage point you didn't know about, or it will tell you like you can either use this or you can go this way. And I think at least giving player the visible option is a good thing. So whereas Call of Duty Ghosts is switching back to linear presentation, like we're no longer having the choice system of Black Ops 2. If it implements these really subtle but useful things, it can make it more engaging. Some people might be worried, thinking, "Oh, Call of Duty was going in a great direction by finally having a choice system." Some people might say, "Oh, linear storytelling, that's just the same thing." Linear storytelling is perfectly fine. It's happened for years, and many games do it. It's not anything bad. See, linear people don't like the idea of linear. Some people, anyway, because they don't like the idea of being restricted. Because they're the make your own fun types. They want to have a big open sandbox. See, whereas I can appreciate that, not all linear games are literally a narrow corridor. Because that's what people make it sound like sometimes. Quite frankly, Call of Duty is a game where it's not just literally a narrow corridor. Sometimes, even if it is a corridor, there's a reason why. You're either in a corridor, or you're in a house or something. You're in a building. You're going somewhere. The idea of linear storytelling is a journey, going from point A to B, trying to get somewhere, trying to run from something, or towards someone. The idea of linear storytelling is you started off on this journey and you need to see it to its end. And that's the idea. It's just the detail in between is what makes the difference between, a funneled experience and a linear experience with options. Now, whereas Call of Duty might have these really specific, really funneled linear storytelling, which is out to just give you a story or, just make you have fun and you feel really excited, which Infinity Ward is good at doing, or, it can... What's his name? It can be done in a way where it mixes both, i.e. strictly linear funneling, and more open sections where the player is free to do whatever. I mean, Call of Duty does this all the time, from Modern Warfare 1 all the way to Black Ops 2. Every single game's campaign has always had a situation where it's all like, okay, go here, do this, open that, blow this open, shoot that. But then once a fight breaks out, the area opens up, suddenly there's multiple paths, you can go left, right, or straight down the middle, you can... certain places might have better cover, certain places might have a different weapon, and so on. So there might be different, paths which will allow you to use these, new mobility options in new ways. So I imagine that with Call of Duty Ghosts, even though we've seen strictly linear parts so far, I mean, they usually show that off anyway. I mean, even so far as back as Black Ops 1, like that, Black Ops 1's E3 showing was a very linear situation. Like first they were in the caves, then they got the chopper. Modern Warfare 2 is the same. They start off in the ice level, where they were doing the ice climbing, and then he was following Soap for ages until he did the little sneaky bit, which was way more open. So I think that was cool. Modern Warfare 3 was similar. I think that was Hunter Killer, and where you started off underwater, then you went into the boat, killed the people inside the boat. You see what I mean? Like, it's always a mix of linear, follow this person, do this, but the second you get into the actual battle zones, it opens up. It doesn't become just a shooting gallery where people pop their heads off. It's like there's multiple paths, you have to figure out which way to take and, what the risk will be. So if you can utilize stuff like the contextual lean, the vaulting, and this knee slide in these situations, is going to make the game even more engaging. Like a game like Fear 2 is an exciting game because you have these mobility options such as slide and manual cover and actually no, I don't think Fear 2 has contextual lean, thinking about it. I think, but Fear 3 did, but that was more like stick to cover lean. So but the point is though, having these features made these games exciting because it was a layer on top of the core gameplay that makes it more enjoyable. And in fact, at this point, I'm going to hope that this becomes part of the core gameplay, because I've always said that I enjoy games like Crysis and Fear for having these amazing mobility options, these extra attack options. But it always not made me sad, because I mean, it's Call of Duty. It's always been like, oh, I wish Call of Duty had this, because whereas these games are fun, those games, they lack the finesse, they lack the smoothness of Call of Duty. If a game like COD could finally have these really awesome mobility options, it's going to make the game way more exciting. I mean, Black Ops 2 did a good job with having the dolphin dive, and I think the dive can make for for some really awesome moments, both online and offline. So having a knee slide now makes it really cool. I mean, if we're to talk about online for a second, I can just imagine the awesome machinimas people can make using the vaulting stuff. You can show a really epic mission where a team of people is like vaulting over cover, sprinting down a hallway, knee sliding into cover, and poking their head around the wall. Just stuff like that. I think that's really cool. So I'm sure that people utilize stuff like that really well. So I think, if we're to look at this overall, I basically believe that if there's sections that are going to make a use of these things, they have to be aware of, difficulty, as I mentioned, whether or not these situations will be survivable if you use them or not. And if you don't use them, but the situation continues, then that's a missed set piece, and that's kind of unfair. But if they're going to make you use it, make it either blindingly obvious or just available. Because, as I said, a situation where it's like, you see your teammates do it, so you do it yourself, but you don't have to, or if the game actually tells you literally, with some sort of like objective marker, knee slide into this cover, or something like that, or peek around this corner, or your teammates actually tell you audibly, like, peek into this corner, whatever. I'm sure if there's a tutorial of some sort, either voice or text or both, it might, your teammates might tell you can knee slide in the cover for quick access. You can lean around corners to see who's there, and that kind of thing. They have to at least make it obvious. They can't just sort of say it. See, Black Ops is funny because Black Ops never told you about the dolphin dive. You kind of either you saw it or heard about it, because the game doesn't actually tell you there's a dolphin dive in the game. Black Ops 1 throws you into the thick of it, and so does 2. And there's never a point where it actually tells you can dolphin dive. It just tells you how to aim and shoot. The rest of it you literally just figure out. So I don't know. I hope COD Ghost tells you, but doesn't make it too gimmicky, even though gimmicky isn't a bad thing. And finally, the freedom of use is incredibly important. Even though, as I said, the Black Ops 2 way of doing it was a bit like, well, how was I supposed to know if I didn't watch it online? At least, once you make it obvious, the freedom of use is perfect. Just having the feature there is what's made, as I said, Fear and Crisis so fun. So even though the situations in Crisis 2, like just very few, where using the slide was actually told to you, in Crisis 2 and 3, and Fear 2 and 3, there's so many situations where having stuff like a fly kick, having stuff like the slide in Crisis 2 and 3 and Fear 2 and 3, having these things actually all the Fears had slide. Yeah, having a slide in Fears and Crisis, it's exciting because there's so many things you can do with it. You can slide underneath a small door or cover. You can what's his name? You can slide into an enemy. You can be escaping an enemy and slide right as you go behind a corner, or as you're coming out of a corner. You know what I mean? One of the funnest things to do in Crisis is when you slide and start shooting, like as you're sliding by somebody. It's very action movie-ish. I mean, in multiplayer, when you see people do it, it looks kind of cool and funny, especially if they get killed while they're doing it. But in single player, where you won't see other people doing unless enemies did it, which would be kind of amazing, I think. Being able to do it kind of gives you that, action hero feel, and I think Call of Duty's always been about that, kind of putting you in the shoes of an action hero of some sort. So having these features, giving us the freedom of use, making set pieces either completely obvious or available, as well as not restricting when a player can have access to a set piece using one of these options. I mean, other than that, I think that Call of Duty Ghosts is looking great so far, and I can't wait to play the game, obviously. That'll be a long ways off unless I manage to get into one of those events, which means I'll probably get the game for free, which will be awesome. But until then, this has been JusticeSoulTuna with another voice of JST. See everybody later.